Throughout late 2024 and accelerating into 2025, something fundamental has shifted in Europe's approach to supporting Ukraine that has caught Russia completely off guard. After nearly 3 years of war where European support was characterized by hesitation, internal divisions, and constant worry about escalation, European nations have suddenly moved to a posture of massive, coordinated, long-term commitment to Ukrainian victory that represents the largest European military mobilization since World War II. We're talking about commitments that were announced throughout 2024 and are being executed in 2025 that total over $150–200 billion in combined military aid, economic support, and reconstruction funding from European nations over the next 2 to 5 years. Germany alone committed approximately $30 billion in additional support throughout 2024-2025. France committed $20+ billion, UK committed $15+ billion. Smaller European nations committed amounts proportional to their economies that in some cases exceed what they spend on their own militaries. This isn't just money. Throughout 2024-2025, European nations have fundamentally restructured their defense industries to produce ammunition, weapons, and military equipment specifically for Ukraine at scales not seen since the Cold War. Artillery shell production across Europe has ramped from roughly 300,000 shells annually in 2022 to over 1.5 million shells annually by 2025, with targets to reach 2+ million by 2026. Tank production, armored vehicle manufacturing, drone production, missile systems, all being expanded or restarted after decades of decline. And here's what Moscow absolutely didn't expect as we close out 2025. This surge in European support isn't temporary crisis response. This is permanent strategic realignment where European nations have concluded that Russian imperial ambitions represent existential threat to European security and that stopping Russia in Ukraine is quite literally a matter of European survival. The massive shift in power isn't just about Ukraine getting more weapons. It's about Europe awakening to geopolitical reality and mobilizing resources on a scale that changes the entire strategic calculation of the war. Let me show you specifically what changed throughout 2024-2025 that represents this surge. In early 2024, European support for Ukraine was still characterized by debates, delays, and disagreements. Hungary blocking EU aid packages, Germany hesitant about sending Taurus missiles, France talking about peace negotiations, individual nations providing support but without coordinated strategy or long-term commitments. By mid-2024, the tone began shifting. Russia's continued attacks, evidence of war crimes, and increasingly aggressive rhetoric toward NATO countries themselves created growing realization across Europe that this wasn't just about Ukraine. Putin's Russia represented direct threat to European security that wouldn't end even if Ukraine fell. Poland, Baltic states, potentially even Germany and France could face Russian aggression if Putin succeeded in Ukraine. This realization crystallized throughout late 2024 into concrete policy changes. European Union in late 2024 approved multi-year funding mechanism for Ukraine that bypasses individual nation vetoes, allowing sustained support even if one country like Hungary objects. This was major political achievement that enables reliable long-term European aid. Individual European nations throughout 2024-2025 made unprecedented national commitments. Germany, which was reluctant to send heavy weapons in 2022, announced throughout 2024-2025 that it would become the second largest military supporter of Ukraine after the United States, committing to sustain multi-year aid at levels equivalent to significant percentage of German defense budget. France, throughout 2024-2025, moved from talking about negotiations to talking about Ukrainian victory, with Macron making statements about potential French troops in Ukraine, and France dramatically increasing military aid, including long-range missiles and fighter jet training. UK, throughout 2024-2025, maintained its strong support and actually increased commitments despite domestic political changes. Both conservative and Labour governments committed to sustained Ukraine support as bipartisan British policy. Poland, throughout 2024-2025, became one of Ukraine's largest supporters relative to its economy, committing roughly 3 to 4% of GDP to Ukraine aid, an extraordinary level that reflects Poland's understanding that if Ukraine falls, Poland could be next on Russia's target list. Now let me explain what this means in terms of actual military capability flowing to Ukraine. Artillery ammunition, which was critical bottleneck throughout 2022-2023, has surged throughout 2024-2025 due to European production increases. Ukraine was rationing shells in 2023, firing maybe 5,000, 10,000 per day, compared to Russia firing 50,000 plus. By late 2025, Ukrainian artillery fire rates have increased significantly, closer to 20,000, 30,000 per day, because European shell production has ramped up dramatically. This matters enormously on the battlefield. Artillery is the dominant weapon in this war. Whoever can fire more shells generally wins engagements. Russia's advantage in artillery throughout 2023, early 2024, was a major factor in their ability to make slow advances. By late 2025, Ukrainian artillery capabilities have improved to the point where they can match or exceed Russian fire in critical sectors. Air defense systems provided by Europe throughout 2024-2025 have transformed Ukraine's ability to defend against Russian missile and drone attacks. Patriot systems from Germany and Netherlands, Iris-T systems from Germany, SAM-PT from France and Italy. These sophisticated systems, combined with training and ammunition supplies, mean Ukraine is shooting down 70-90% of incoming Russian missiles and drones in most attacks throughout late 2025. This is why Russia's winter strategy has been failing. European air defense support has made Ukrainian air defense so effective that Russian missile campaigns aren't achieving strategic effects anymore. Armored vehicles and tanks from Europe throughout 2024-2025 have helped Ukraine reconstitute and expand armored formations. Leopard tanks from multiple European countries, Bradley fighting vehicles, CV-90s, Challenger tanks from UK, dozens of different vehicle types, hundreds of individual vehicles, allowing Ukraine to form and equip mechanized brigades that can conduct offensive operations. Fighter jets, F-16s that European nations pledged to provide have begun arriving in Ukraine throughout 2024-2025, with dozens delivered and more coming. While not game changers by themselves, they represent European commitment to giving Ukraine modern Western aircraft and the training to use them effectively. Let me show you what's happening with European defense industry throughout 2024-2025, because this reveals the scale of mobilization. Artillery ammunition production across Europe was roughly 300,000 shells per year in early 2023. By late 2025, production has reached approximately 1.5 million shells annually, and European defense ministers throughout 2025 have announced targets of 2 million shells annually by 2026. This required massive investment, reopening production lines that were closed, building new factories, training workers, securing raw materials. European governments throughout 2024-2025 have provided billions in subsidies and guaranteed purchase contracts to incentivize companies to make these investments. Rheinmetall, major German defense company, announced throughout 2024-2025 a plan to build ammunition factory in Ukraine itself, producing shells directly in country under wartime conditions. This represents extraordinary commitment, building defense production in an active war zone. Czech initiative throughout 2024-2025 to source artillery ammunition globally for Ukraine has delivered hundreds of thousands of shells, with European nations funding the purchases. This creative approach, using European money to buy ammunition from countries outside Europe that have stocks to sell, has helped bridge the gap while European production ramps up. Drone production across Europe has exploded throughout 2024-2025. Multiple European companies are producing drones specifically designed for Ukrainian military needs. Thousands of drones per month flowing to Ukraine by late 2025. helping Ukraine match Russia's drone capabilities. Missile production throughout Europe is being ramped up for air defense and offensive systems. European nations throughout 2024-2025 committed to producing more Patriots, Iris-T missiles, Storm Shadow Scalp cruise missiles, and other systems specifically to replenish stocks being sent to Ukraine and to supply Ukraine directly. Now let me explain what this means strategically for the war. Russia's calculation throughout 2022-2023 was that European support for Ukraine would be temporary. Europeans would get tired, divided, unwilling to bear the economic and political costs of sustained support. Russia could outlast Ukrainian and European will through attrition strategy, just keep fighting until Europe gave up on Ukraine. This calculation throughout 2024-2025 has been proven catastrophically wrong. Instead of European support declining, it's surging. Instead of Europeans getting tired, they're mobilizing for long-term confrontation. Instead of divisions widening, European unity on Ukraine has strengthened throughout 2024-2025 to levels nobody anticipated. Moscow, throughout late 2024 and into 2025, has been publicly expressing frustration about European escalation and militarization. Russian officials complain about European weapons flowing to Ukraine, about European defense industry mobilization, about European political will hardening against Russia. This rhetoric reveals that Russia didn't expect this and doesn't know how to respond effectively. Russia's strategy was based on assumptions about European weakness, division, and short attention span. Throughout 2024-2025, Europe has demonstrated strength, unity, and long-term commitment that contradicts every Russian assumption. This is the massive shift in power, not military power in the sense of troops and tanks, but strategic power in the sense of will, resources, and sustained commitment. Let me tell you what's happening with European public opinion throughout 2024-2025, because this underpins the political sustainability of support. Polls across major European countries throughout 2024-2025 show sustained majority support for Ukraine. In Poland and Baltic states, support is overwhelming. 80-90% of population supporting continued aid to Ukraine. In Germany, France, UK, clear majorities throughout 2024-2025 support Ukraine, even as some express concerns about costs. Critically, European publics throughout 2024-2025 have increasingly viewed Ukraine's fight as directly connected to European security. The narrative has shifted from helping distant country to defending Europe's borders. This makes support much more politically sustainable because populations understand their own security is at stake. Russia's attempts throughout 2024-2025 to influence European public opinion against Ukraine's support through propaganda and information operations have largely failed. Some far-right and far-left political parties in Europe remain skeptical of Ukraine's support, but they're minorities. Mainstream political parties across left, center, and right in most European countries support Ukraine throughout 2024-2025. This broad-based political support gives European governments confidence to make long-term commitments. They're not worried that next election will bring government that cancels Ukraine support. Consensus has formed that this is multi-year commitment regardless of which parties are in power. Now let me show you what specific capabilities this European surge is providing Ukraine that Russia didn't expect. Long-range strike capability through Storm Shadow to Scalp missiles from UK and France has allowed Ukraine throughout 2024-2025 to hit Russian logistics, command posts, and military infrastructure deep behind front lines. Russia expected to have sanctuary in rear areas. European missiles have eliminated that sanctuary. Advanced air defense, creating near impenetrable shield over Ukrainian cities and military installations, means Russia can't achieve air superiority or successfully execute strategic bombing campaign. Russia expected to terrorize Ukrainian population into submission through missile attacks. European air defense support has prevented this strategy from working. Sustained artillery ammunition supply means Ukraine can match Russian artillery fire rates in critical battles throughout 2025, negating Russia's primary tactical advantage. Russia expected to overwhelm Ukraine through superior artillery. European shell production has equalized this. Armored vehicle supply allowing Ukraine to form new mechanized brigades throughout 2025 gives Ukraine capability to conduct counteroffensives when opportunities arise. Russia expected Ukraine to be degraded to light infantry through attrition. European armor has kept Ukraine capable of mobile warfare. Electronic warfare and counter-battery radar systems from Europe throughout 2024-2025 have made Ukrainian artillery much more effective while degrading Russian artillery effectiveness. Russia expected to dominate in technical warfare. European technology has shifted this balance toward Ukraine. Let me explain what this means for Russia's strategic position as 2025 ends. Russia is discovering that the war they thought would be decided by 2023 or 2024 at latest is now an indefinite commitment against an opponent that's getting stronger, not weaker, due to European support surge. Russia's military throughout 2024-2025 has been taking casualties at rates of perhaps 1,000, 1,500 per day, according to various estimates, killed and wounded combined. These casualties have to be replaced through mobilization, which is politically sensitive in Russia, or through recruiting, which is expensive and attracting increasingly lower quality soldiers. Russia's equipment losses throughout 2024-2025 are being replaced through Soviet-era stockpile refurbishment, but those stockpiles aren't infinite. Russia has gone through thousands of tanks, thousands of armored vehicles, hundreds of artillery pieces. Eventually, the stockpiles run dry. Russia's economy throughout 2024-2025 has been under severe strain trying to sustain war effort. Defense spending consuming huge portion of budget, labor shortages severe, inflation elevated, interest rates very high. This can't continue indefinitely without economic crisis. Meanwhile, Ukraine throughout 2024-2025 is being sustained by European support that's ramping up, not declining. Ukrainian losses are being replaced with European equipment. Ukrainian ammunition is being supplied by expanding European production. Ukrainian economy is being supported by European financial aid. The attrition war Russia thought it would win is turning into attrition war that Russia might lose if European support continues at current levels throughout 2026-2027. This is the strategic nightmare for Moscow that they didn't anticipate. Subscribe to this channel if you want continued coverage of how this European mobilization unfolds in 2026, because mainstream coverage often focuses on individual aid packages without showing the broader pattern of sustained European commitment. Now, let me tell you what I personally think is happening here. Europe went through several psychological stages since the war began in February 2022. Initial stage was shock and some support, but hope for quick resolution. Second stage throughout 2022-2023 was sustained support, but with debates, divisions, and uncertainty about long-term commitment. Third stage, which Europe entered throughout 2024 and has solidified in 2025, is acceptance of reality. This is long-term confrontation with Russia that will define European security for decades. Russia under Putin represents imperial power that must be contained or it will keep expanding. Ukraine is the front line of that containment. European security depends on Ukrainian success. This psychological shift throughout 2024-2025 has enabled the massive surge in support because it's no longer seen as helping distant country, but as essential self-defense. When you understand that Ukraine's fight is your fight, spending billions and mobilizing industry becomes rational investment in your own security. Moscow fundamentally misread European psychology. They assumed Europeans were soft, divided, unable to sustain commitment to hard security issues. Throughout 2024-2025, Europeans have proven that assumption wrong, not because Europeans became more aggressive, but because they recognized that failing to stop Russia now would mean fighting Russia later under worse circumstances. The shift in power throughout 2024-2025 is that Europe has moved from reluctant supporter to committed partner in Ukrainian victory. This changes the entire strategic calculation. Ukraine is no longer fighting primarily with its own limited resources, supplemented by uncertain Western aid. Ukraine is fighting with the backing of European industrial base, European financial resources, and European political commitment that shows no sign of wavering as 2025 ends. For Russia, this means the war they launched, expecting quick victory or slow attrition leading to favorable settlement, has become a protracted struggle against opponent that's getting stronger and has support system that's ramping up rather than declining. This wasn't the plan. And Moscow, throughout late 2024 and into 2025, has been visibly struggling to adjust to this new reality. Europe's support for Ukraine surges throughout 2024-2025, with commitments exceeding $150–200 billion over multiple years and defense industry mobilization not seen since World War II. Moscow didn't expect this massive shift in power where Europeans moved from uncertain supporters to fully committed partners in Ukrainian victory. And as 2025 ends, this European commitment shows no sign of weakening. If anything, it's still intensifying as more European leaders conclude that stopping Russia and Ukraine is essential to European security. The surge is real, the mobilization is happening, the shift in strategic power is undeniable, and Russia's calculations that assumed European weakness and division have been proven wrong throughout 2024-2025 in ways that fundamentally change the trajectory of the war. Europe has decided that Ukraine must not lose, and Europe is backing that decision with resources on a scale that makes Ukrainian victory achievable if the commitment is sustained throughout 2026 and beyond. That's where we are as 2025 ends. European artillery shell production at 5 times 2022 levels and still ramping up. European air defense systems protecting Ukrainian cities, European tanks and armored vehicles equipping Ukrainian brigades, European money supporting Ukrainian economy and military, and European political will sustaining all of it with broad public support and cross-party consensus that this is essential to European security. Moscow expected European support to fade. Instead, it's surging. That's the massive shift in power that's reshaping this war as 2025 becomes 2026. And based on commitments already made and production capacity coming online, 2026 could see even higher levels of European support than 2025, further shifting the strategic balance against Russia in ways Moscow never anticipated when they launched this war, believing Europeans lacked the will to sustain a fight.